Hello and welcome back to the SecurityMetrics podcast. My name is Jen Stone. I'm one of the principal security analysts here at SecurityMetrics. I'm very excited today to talk to you about data security, data risk management, and I have a very excellent guest to talk to you about this. Let me tell you a little bit about him before we get started. Chaudhuri is an award-winning executive and entrepreneur with a track record of building successful products, businesses, and teams. Ani is driven to bring important solutions to market and has founded 4 technology companies to date: eCircle, acquired by Reliance in India, Opalin, acquired by Hewlett-Packard, Houdini, acquired by Declara, and Dasera. Prior to Dasera, Ani worked at McKinsey, HP, and Tata Steel. I probably mispronounced some of those things, but welcome, Ani. I'm delighted to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here, Jen, and you did not mispronounce anything at all.
Oh,
it was perfect.
Amazing. Well, this is a topic that I don't think gets nearly enough attention as its own specific topic, which is data security, data risk management, focusing on the data. We have so many security standards or regulations that infer the protection of data, but looking at it as its own important topic, I think doesn't get enough attention. Can you tell me a little bit about your perspective on what data security is and data risk management? And clearly, I pronounce this word in 2 different ways all the time. But what is your perspective on this topic? And kind of give me the very high-level view of what it means to be talking about data security.
Well, Jen, as you know, the world is already data-driven. Everybody wants to use data. So what that means is you're collecting more data, and then you're giving access to that data to more people, right? So the world is data-driven, and what we want to do is build a world that is a safer data-driven world, which means data is collected for good purposes, it is used in good purposes, and there are checks and balance to make sure that happens.
I think it's an excellent summary. I know one of the things that I've been concerned about recently is not just the sheer amount that is collected on all of us, but how do we know it's being protected? Who are these people that have it? And with the introduction of artificial intelligence, it seems like that's even driving that collection and use of our information further. What do you see as maybe successful ways to approach this problem?
Again, that's a very astute insight in terms of like the collection of data that we are doing. Human actions are driven by 2 extreme emotions: aspirations and fears. Right? I think that anything that we do, including whether it's data security, whether it is, inventing seat belts or cars are safer, it's going to be one or the other. People will sometimes do things because the consequences are so bad, and people will do things because that's the right thing to do. Generally, either ways, there's going to be action. However, when it is aspirational, the quality of the work is generally better because you are driving towards a greater purpose and not trying to stay out of a spiral of fear.
Right.
And so I do feel that given that framework of people taking on the vision of a safer data-driven world, there are other factors that drive companies to do the right thing. Firstly, because companies care about their reputation. So they generally try to do the right things about protecting customer data. When that fails, there are different standards, whether they're regulatory or security, that they try to adhere to. And so that becomes a bunch of actions. And then finally, when all of that fails or somebody is not doing their job properly, then there are fines. Like these are the 3 things that happen. I wish and I hope and I believe that most of the companies are trying to do things because it is the right thing to do.
I like that perspective and insight. I see organizations approaching the protection of data from all of these perspectives. And where I see it working poorly is where organizations either don't take it seriously or see it as a cost center. They haven't recognized the value in doing it beyond it. This costs me money. Why should I do it?
Yeah, I think there is truth in that, but I would rather look at the sun than the shadow.
Uh-huh.
I do believe that the quantum of spending is restricted no matter what part of a company you look.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody feels that somebody else is getting more money, more resources. Having said that, every company has a basket of money that they in healthcare that they want to use to be HIPAA compliant, not just because they want to be HIPAA compliant, but because that's the right thing to do. I meet professionals and practitioners all the time, and they're not there just for the money. Yes, the money is good, but that they are there because there is purpose in what they're doing.
Yes. And that's what I see as well, that even when there is a restriction on budget, there are people who truly care about the people whose lives would be impacted if data were to get out and get into the wrong hands. And so some of the things that I see them doing include a defense-in-depth approach where they're protecting their systems with network security controls. They're protecting it using antivirus, and they have maybe some good policies and procedures around who gets access to things. But the real struggle I see with many of them from the beginning is they don't know where all of that information exists in their systems. And they don't even know how to go about finding it.
That is a fair reflection. Again, I think the way to think about data security is through 4 questions. That's how you frame it. The first one is, where is my data? With the cloud, with a bunch of data on-prem, it's all over the place. So the first question is, where is my data? Second question is, now that I know where my data is, what data do I have? Is it just zip codes, or is it somebody's social security number?
Right.
So the second one is, what data do I have? Third is, who has access to that data, or what has access to that data? So it could be an individual, but it could also be an application. Okay. The third one is the data interactions in my organization. Are they introducing risk, and what kind of risk are they introducing? So for example, if you are going to be data driven, you've given access to data to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Some of them will be curious. Some of them may not be as good. And what they will do is they'll introduce risk. So the 4 variables again are, where is my data? What data do I have? Who has access to it? And what risk are they introducing?
Yeah.
Once you have the framework of these 4 questions, what you do is you think about the business rules that should drive behavior. The challenge has been till now that technical solutions are too technical. So business people struggle with the technical solution that is presented to them. So a simplified policy engine allows you to say in simple terms, if this, then that, which means, I'll give you an example from healthcare. If there is PHI and PII in the same table, please encrypt the data, right? It should be as simple as that. But till now, what has happened is that the tables and the schemas and where they sit is all over the place. And you kind of need a little bit of a PhD in the company's data schema to do anything about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Now, once you have these policies, there are going to be exceptions to these policies, meaning people are going to do things that are outside of this policy. You cannot have humans chase these wild cats anymore. There is just too much data, too many people, too many ways of interacting with data. So what you have to do is you have to figure out a way of automatically remediating or automatically escalating the areas where the policy is broken. So again, 4 questions, 1 simple policy engine followed by automation. That to me is how we will get closer and closer to a world where we have acceptable amounts of risk associated with data.
It sounds very simple and straightforward, this approach that you're talking about. Starting with, let's start with the first statement, which is know where it is. So when I go in to do, I'll do HIPAA assessments and help people know kind of how close are you, or a risk assessment in their environment. And that's always the first question is, what are your data flows? Because if I understand their data flows, then it can help me understand where it resides and how it moves between these places. And often what I hear is, well, it's all in the ERP. All of our data is in the ERP. But it turns out it's not all in the ERP. It's often in a file server here, in an individual's laptop over there, and then in another, maybe a standalone storage device over here. But they don't know where it is because their interactions with it typically are with the ERP. But it had to get there somehow, right? And so what is that process of getting it there often ends up with many different copies in many different places. So what is, how do we help them find this data?
Yeah, again, that's a good question. And no matter what answer you look at today is going to be incomplete. It is going to be best effort, right? So for example, tools that exist today in the market, including ours, do very well when it comes to cloud data. Why? Because you can use the cloud APIs to go do some auto discovery. So whether data is sitting in AWS, GCP, whether it is sitting in Azure or Microsoft 365, you can very, very quickly get to that data. You can create an inventory of that data. Now, then you may have data sitting on-prem in data stores like Oracle and the others. Then you have to kind of add another layer, like how do you find that data is there? So now you have to work with networking tools so that you can figure out just by studying the network, where are these endpoints? Once you have those endpoints, then you can go discover data. Then you think about the DLP tools that are installed on computers and local servers. And again, they have a piece together. So the way to think about just the discovery piece is that there are multiple Lego blocks, but they are all in different sizes today. The grown-up Lego blocks are small.
Yes.
And the Duplo ones are like really big. They're both Legos, but they don't work together.
Right.
Right. Today, when you think about data discovery, that is what is happening. You've got these disparate tools that should be fitting in together. Theoretically, they do, but actually they don't.
Yep, that has been my experience. And I think that's one of the biggest frustrations for many of the organizations I work with is they want to go to the next step of protecting it. But if they can't figure out where it is, we can't move on to the next step. All right. And so from your perspective, what are the most successful, and it always comes down, I mean, we can talk about data flows and drawing diagrams and talking to the personnel. I think those are great ways to start, but they are never enough. And I think that looking at a discovery tool then is an important way to look at it. And so I don't know if data discovery tooling is part of your experience, or if you have a way to maybe look at how do we know what is a good discovery tool or a more effective discovery tool, or where would someone start with that?
So I'm actually going to put forward a challenge to you. So I'll be a little contrarian here. I think we are in a world. So growing up, have you solved the Rubik's Cube?
Yes.
Yes. So growing up, when you first come in contact with the Rubik's Cube, you're trying to solve by the side, not by layers.
Yes.
Right? Now, imagine if there is somebody who has solved 3 sides, that person is unlikely to be able to solve all of it because he's gone too far in the wrong direction.
And you don't want to undo the things that you've done.
Correct. Now, this is where the challenge is. I think when you said that a great starting point is talking to people, interviewing, sending them spreadsheets for their best effort, that is the 3-sided Rubik Cube that you solved.
Okay. All right.
Where I would actually go is I would actually throw automation at this problem first.
Really?
I would say, here is a tool that will take on 95% of the load of the discovery, classification, and tagging of the data. Now it is left to humans to deal with the remaining 5%. It switches the effort and the quality of work humans can do in a very, very aspiration-driven direction, instead of like, here is the store, I've got these hundreds of thousands of columns of data that I need to tag and say what is sensitive, what is not. What if there was a system that actually could tag everything, give you confidence of tagging and classification, could say this is sensitive, this is not, and then you could just correct that system?
I would, if I were one of the IT or governance people in an organization like that, I would definitely want to have an automated tool doing that work for me, because the way that I described, where we have always started with, is very human work intensive and exhausting and fraught with error.
Yes, and this is why I'm challenging the status quo and saying this human should not be doing this work, and to make this transformation happen, like which is human-driven data security to human assisted data security, there are three questions you have to kind of think about: what to change to, and how to cause the change. So what to change is that humans are the ones who are doing the accounting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that accounting has to happen in an automated manner. What to change to is that humans should be doing the analyzing, not the accounting. And how to cause the change is like people like you who are guiding organizations have to help them change that mindset, saying that even a half-baked tool is going to do better than an efficient human.
I think I would have to agree with that. Looking back on my experience of trying to help them find their data, and what a agonizing experience it has been over and over again. If there's automation that can take over that, the difficult parts, and then you can analyze and make good decisions about it once you know it, I think that's a much better approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it will improve the quality of work life of the people who are responsible for data, and they will do better work.
So does that carry on to the next one that you stated, which was the classification of data?
Yes, I already said, like, it's data discovery, classification, tagging, using tools to figure out who has access to what, and using automation to figure out that is every data interaction safe or unsafe. Like this all of these four questions that I started off with, like where is my data, what data do I have, who has access to it, and are they introducing risk, today is completely automated end to end.
Excellent. Well, I mean, as you said, improving the lives of the people who normally would do this manually to get that into a tool, I think is the right direction. So you have worked with organizations who have taken this approach, as I understand it. And maybe I should tell our listeners, I stumbled across your booth at HIMSS because you had little stuffed alligators, and I needed to get one for a friend. So this spurred the conversation, and I was really fascinated with what I heard and with the tool. And while I would always hesitate to in any way be salesy, my people who follow the podcast know that, I think when we find a good tool, a good solution, we really should talk about it. And so that's what brought us here. So I would love to hear maybe an example or a case study of how you have seen this used in action, what kind of places you've seen it work, and what the outcomes were.
So we've got like multiple, so 80% of our customers are in healthcare. So we really understand this vertical well. Mm-hmm. I'm going to quote something that is already on our website, so it's public knowledge. I'm not breaking any confidence here. So there is a healthcare company that we work with, and they are a cloud-first company, so they've got all of their information in the cloud. If there was a breach, the company would shut down. Okay. So what that means is that they are actually aspirationally and energy-wise focused on making sure that their customers' data is safe. But it's easier said than done. For example, before they came and started working with us, if they had to go look for some specific data about data, it would have taken them a couple of weeks and a few people to go look for that data to just mine it out. Okay. After we came into play, there was a situation where they were trying to size up the data that they had to kind of for their cybersecurity insurance quote.
Right.
And what used to take them 2 weeks took them 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That is how much automation using our tool allows people to do. And the quality of that output is going to be so much better because it is not best effort, it is continuous, it is being monitored all the time, and it is presented in a very normalized manner. Because if you give 3 humans 3 tasks of sorting, let's say, so let's take an example, okay? So let's say there is somebody who's sorting soccer players and is given that task to 3 different people. So the information available is what position does somebody play, what club does that person play for, what country is that person from. What would happen is that 3 people some may sorted by the position of the player, some may sorted by the club that they play for, some may sorted by the country that they play for. So though they all classified and tagged it, they tagged it differently, it's not normalized. But when a machine comes and does the same work, it already knows how to do it. And so it'll always be standardized. So for example, that is one of the drivers why the quality and the speed at which you can get to data is faster.
Oh, that's a very interesting outcome. You mentioned at the beginning of it, it was because of a cyber insurance need that drove it. And we're seeing that more and more where people who, especially in the healthcare industry, they need to have cyber insurance, and there are certain things that have to be done. And so, it's serving a specific need, but at the same time, what you said was this company actually cares about its data and is very cloud-based and aspirationally thinking about how to protect and understand its data, which I think would probably yield some of your best outcomes, is that focus. Yes, it's serving a specific need, but caring about how that is being done, I think is a critical aspect of it.
There is another use case. So we all know, and we just already discussed this earlier during our talk here, is that PII and PHI should not exist in the same table unencrypted. Interesting question to ask big groups. Do they know for sure that there is no table in their organization where there is PHI and PII and it is not encrypted?
I think that would be a big struggle for most organizations to answer.
Right. So one of our customers had the same challenge, really large company. And what we were able to do is we were able to locate every single instance of that and automatically trigger encryption. And if you separated out the data, and if you had a rule which said, if I separated out the data, they should be unencrypted, you can trigger that as well automatically. So when you bring it together, it is encrypted. When you separate it out, it's unencrypted. And whatever permutation and combination you want.
That's really fantastic. Is this, you said that the majority of your work is in the healthcare industry. Are there other industries where you found this to be effective?
Yeah, we have customers in financial services. We have customers in the consumer space. It is effective everywhere. We have just chosen to go down the healthcare and financial services deeper than other places because these are regulated and they've got some specialized data. Having said that, we have customers in other sectors as well.
So if there's an organization out there that's listening and is interested in really getting their arms around their data, what's their next step?
I think the next step for any company is to invite in companies in data security and put a strategy in place, even before the tool.
Okay.
Right? What is it that we want to achieve? Second is, who in the team do we make responsible for what we want to achieve? 3 is, what resources are we willing to provide that person to achieve what we want to achieve? And then look for the technology. Looking for the technology first may not be the best thing to do. You need the technology to size the opportunity. You may need the technology to implement your ideas, but you have to start with intent, people, resources, and then the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are the things that make any project successful. And something of this magnitude, which could be a large effort for some organizations. Without that, the focus, what direction are we going? Do we have the support that we need? It's going to be a struggle. And then once you do get the information put together, what are they doing with it? So really understanding that the outcome that you're aiming for, I think is that's a wise way to look at it.
And more the reason, like, because these projects are so big, so you have to think about automation. Automation can shrink that time like by about 90%. And then what you can do is once you have the inventory, like if you think about these efforts, most of the time today is like, it's several years, if not several quarters, just the inventorying piece. To me, that is like, if you remember before computers, if you worked in a bank and you couldn't square up the books, people would come back home late, 2 hours, 3 hours, because they were making sure that the books matched.
Yeah.
There was a lot of initial pushback about computers because they thought people would lose their jobs. But what really happened was people were getting home on time because the computer would tally everything much faster, right? And I think that we are in that same place in data security, especially in healthcare, where the expectation is that a consultant will come and help us inventory. And by the time that we have the tools in place to do something with the inventory, technology has moved on. We may not have the same data stores anymore, right? And I do believe that we have to break that cycle. And the way to break that cycle is start with intent, get the right people, get the resources, bring in a couple of companies that can do this for you really fast, and then you tweak and make it better as you learn more.
So you mentioned that this is in the cloud is a really great way to start because of the APIs. But is this also successful in on-prem or colo or those?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's great.
Absolutely.
This has been some really eye-opening information for me. I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you would like people to know about data risk, data security before we end?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that the challenge in front of us is very big. If you just look at the data of breaches in the last 3 years, it's gone up 3x. That's the bad news. The good news is that there is technology that can flatten that risk. All you need to do is look for the most responsive partner for your data security projects that you have. The technology exists today to solve these problems, or at least reduce the amount of work you need to get to, where you have, at least you're sleeping well.
Right. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you again for your time, and I hope to talk to you again in the near future.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate the invitation to this talk.
Right, bye-bye. Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of SecurityMetrics podcast, click on the box on the left. If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. See you on the slopes.